Welcome back to what would have been a True Crime Wednesday episode. However, ended up passing out last night. Didn't wake up until after 1. So, do apologize. So we're doing a makeup stream tonight. So in a way, it's kind of True Crime Thursday. I do apologize also for my washer going off in the background. Got to get some stuff clean for tomorrow. Got lots of clothes, all this, things to take care of. So, do apologize for that. It should be over here pretty soon. So, tonight is also not going to be an extremely long episode. I'm still digging into this case. There's a lot of strange things about it. Police clearing people when really they shouldn't be cleared. There's people getting sued. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on. It's kind of a wild case. There's a lot more debatably going on with this than the Kaylee Rodney case. So, end of the day, this is an interesting one though. We're looking at, why is this not? I don't understand why that's screwed up now. Huh, okay, well, my thumbnail looks funky. That's okay, I suppose. But, I'm gonna fix that if I can. Let's see, hopefully, there we go. Okay, there it goes. It's starting to clear itself up. Great. This case it's weird because there's so much going on. And it's so public. And surprisingly, I'd literally just heard about this like last week. I'd heard some things about it, but I wasn't sure if that was the Delphi case or whatnot. I mean, it was that kind of funky. But keep in mind, that's also coming up next week. We're going to cover that briefly. This case is definitely getting a part 2. There's some more things I'm going to want to discuss about the Kaylee Rodney case here coming up as well. So, all things for 2023, right? But this case here, it's 4 people that were murdered while there was 2 others inside. And they didn't hear a thing. The timeline is going to be absolutely crucial. So you can expect that coming up here pretty soon as well. As you guys know, I mean, my timelines are all right. You know, they definitely get the job done for what they're there for. But this is one of those cases where you absolutely going to have a timeline, because now you got to find out who's lying and who's not. What evidence lines up with whose stories and what doesn't, yada, yada, yada. So there's lots of things we're going to be able to cover with that. And that's why timelines are so crucial to most cases, especially when it comes to homicide. And because then you can start looking back. Okay, so this is when this person was dead. Okay, when the blood clot, when all this other kind of stuff happened at the crime scene. And then you can start basically working your way to an actual time when this actually occurred. Now, does this line up with the narrative or not? All that. So this case has got a lot of homicide case 101 type of activity going on it. I do have a feeling this is a lot more cut and dry than a lot of cases we've looked at. And the reason I say this is because I've already got some weird vibes about some of the people involved. And like I said, there was people getting cleared way too quickly. Way too many coincidences going off. And not enough research into those, which, like I said, I didn't want to go and do anything until I did the research on it myself, and I'm still conducting it. So there's lots and lots of things, like I said, that this case I can't even come out with, because I don't want to go and have something happen to me, like for instance getting sued or something like this, especially over just discussing some of these things. But essentially how the narrative goes, okay, is that these 4 individuals were killed. It is believed somewhere around roughly about 3 a.m. I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head. We're going to get into it in just a second, but essentially these 4 people were killed. 2 were on the very bottom floor, and I believe 2 were also on the 3rd floor, if I'm not mistaken. So the time to get from point A to point B and all this, I mean, there's all sorts of different things about this case that just kind of scream, what the heck? How didn't the police, basically come to a conclusion real quick? Now, allegedly the crime scene was very sloppy, and there's lots and lots of DNA evidence. There's also apparently on at least 2 of the victims, there was defensive wounds. But how did these other 2 people in the house not hear anything? It brings that into question. How could they not hear anything? Did they take sleeping pills and, were they like basically blacked out, drunk or something? I mean, what's going on here? How didn't they hear anything? So this comes into, was this sloppy or was this premeditated? Well, obviously there's some premeditation going on with this, and it's pretty obvious, but was this like planned out, to an extreme amount to basically make it look sloppy? Or was this actually truly just somebody came in, killed these 4 people, didn't think about the other 2 for whatever reason, and then left? I mean, there's lots of questions I have, because why didn't those other 2 people in the house, why weren't they targeted as well? And especially because, if I'm not mistaken, like I said, I got to go and get everything broken down. This crime scene is actually going to be scrubbed here pretty soon. About 20 minutes ago, I believe, is when the article came out declaring that the house is going to be professionally cleaned. Well, I mean, it's been a bit. But all 4 of these victims were killed from what I understood, in their beds. Now, it is believed that Kaylee Goncalves, or I'm not sure if I'm butchering her name here, so I do apologize, but there's a lot of belief that Kaylee was the one being targeted. Now, there's a lot of speculation about her ex-boyfriend, and all this is apparently he was the one that was called several times between Kaylee and her friend, which they were also in bed together. Not sure if she was like sleeping in there or whatnot. We don't know what was going on. We don't know the deal on any of these things. And we do know that the young man in the thumbnail right here, also that you guys can see on your screen, and the very far right female over there, they were, from what I understood, they were in the same room as well. So 2 different rooms here, 4 victims. But the defensive wounds is what strikes me, is these other 2 people, whoever they were, they'd heard what was going on. And so there was a struggle. They'd heard what was going on. Probably when Kaylee and her friend were calling for her boyfriend. Or her ex-boyfriend, rather. I'm assuming that's what it was. But the fact that the guy, after 10 calls, didn't pick up. It was 3 a.m., so I can understand that. To some degree. Just recently broke up, though, and that's the thing. So, I mean, some people are like just very adamant, okay, well, maybe this is just a bad choice they just made, and we're going to get back together. So they keep their phone not on silent. I mean, there's all sorts of questions I have on this. It's a ridiculous case. I think there's so much going on here that isn't being investigated. So we're going to go and do what we can. At this point, unfortunately, because they're not going to go and FOIA, we're not going to be able to FOIA anything until the case is considered closed. We have to wait for that before we can actually start actively going after FOIAs and things like this. This is when we can start breaking things down. Chances are, police, are they going to miss something? Absolutely. More often than not, they do, especially the more time goes on. For whatever reason, the detective work from a lot of these police agencies tends to get a little sloppier. It's not as good. There's all sorts of things. I mean, I'm not saying all detectives are bad either, but hey, how's it going? So there's all sorts of things when it comes down to this case that are just a little peculiar. And I strongly feel that, end of the day, if Kaylee was being targeted, why didn't her ex pick up the phone? That's the biggest question I have right here. Because, to me, that screams motive. I was second and third floor? Okay. Still, end of the day, it's how couldn't the bottom floor have heard something, especially, Right. The thing about that, though, is I'm not sure, was there actually a party going on that night? There wasn't a party, and it was just those 2 other people that were at the home. Like I said, I'm still pretty new to this case on this one, but if there's only those 2 other people home, that's what I've been reading, then there ends up being kind of an issue here. How didn't they hear? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure there's other people that are probably thinking the same thing, just like, how couldn't these people have heard? And honestly, I'm just gonna be a little funny with this, but this almost just screamed scream. to me, you know, type of killing, if you will. Not that it's, I mean, it's not like the same thing, obviously, and I'm not trying to make light of it, but that's just what this kind of screamed to me. It was like, there's something kind of eerie going on here, a little weird, with this homicide case, and the fact that there's so much about this case that it just doesn't look like that's being investigated, really. There's a lot that is, sure, but this case is just, it's not, I mean, I believe this would be more cut and dry if people, or if more and more people were getting involved and were breaking things apart. Like the tarot reader, though, I mean, she needs to chill out, I'm just going to just say it as it is, that tarot reader that's being sued by the college professor, she needs to chill out, with her tarot reading. I mean, yeah, I know, I don't know what's going on with my internet here. I've been struggling with it especially when Streamlabs comes on, it struggles, like really, really bad. So, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get that issue fixed in 2023, as I'm getting really tired of the internet being so terrible. but yeah, let's get into the stuff I have pulled up in my browser. So I think that's going to be the interesting part here. So just kind of going over the timeline, we're going all the way back to November 12th. Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Zana Kernodle were students at the University of Idaho who lived at a nearby off-campus residence in Moscow, a college town of about 25,000 people. So if this was somebody from that town, that narrows it down pretty severely. I think this is somebody they knew. Allegedly Kaylee was also being stalked too, and the image of that stalker is a little interesting. They had two other roommates at the residence, a 3-floor, 6-bedroom apartment. It's ridiculous. She posted a series of photos on her Instagram, and at some point with the caption, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." Blah, 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 blah. We look at Sunday, November 13th. Okay, I guess I need to read this part. So I guess on November 12th, Chapin and Kernodle went to a party on campus, which wasn't too far away from their home, and Mogan and Goncalves went to a downtown bar, both going away from the house, but way different, areas. The food cart and all this and bar were pretty far out, actually. Mogan and Goncalves ordered at a late-night food truck at about 1:41 a.m. The food truck's live Twitch stream shows. That's interesting, the food truck has got a live Twitch stream. Very interesting. I've never heard of that, but that's kind of interesting. They ordered $10 worth of carbonara from the grub truckers and wait for about 10 minutes for their food. As they waited, they could be seen chatting with each other and with other people standing by the truck. Joseph Woodall manages the truck, so the two students do not seem to be in distress or in danger in any way. They returned home at some point in the early morning. Noon on Sunday, a call came in to 911 about an unconscious person at an off-campus residence. They didn't say who called 911. That would be a nice one to know. Arriving officers found the door at the residence open and discovered the bodies of 4 fatally stabbed students. Okay. Whoever called 911 probably did this and ran outside and was staying outside. Pretty traumatic scene to find 4 dead college students in a residence. The coroner, Kathy Mabut, told CNN. Of course, CNN. Oh, jeez. You already know there's going to be some issues there. No sign of forced entry or damage. I think, that screams a few different things, too. There's no forced entry or damage. That's just basically saying this is somebody that was able to get in because they knew them, or maybe the door was unlocked before. Maybe they'd left a door unlocked, something like this. Could have gotten through a window. There's all sorts of different things this could scream, but this is where you'd start. If through a window, it's a different story. So now you got to go and look at why is their window open, or how did they get the window open. There would be some signs of that, but who knows if the police actually looked at that. Like I said, I'm always going to reference the David Crowley case. Look how much things were wrong with that case. And yet, the police were like, no, it was David Crowley. Really? I would guess there's probably some other funky things the police are looking over here. 4 people found dead in a home off campus. University of Idaho President Scott Green announced that the 4 victims were students and canceled classes on Monday, on the 14th, which is Monday. They identified the 4 homicide victims, and they said the details were limited. No one was in custody. They did not believe there was an ongoing community risk based on information gathered during the preliminary investigation. We don't know. If Kaylee was being targeted, chances are there's not going to be any community risk. However, if they were just killed just because, which it's hard to break those two things down sometimes, because then you have to look at motive, and then you have to be able to break down alibis. Were these alibis actually rock solid or not? Look at, for instance, the case of Kylie Rodney. Look at Jagger Westfall. There's some interesting things about that guy there. That's all I'm going to say. There's lots and lots of things coming out about him right now. So for those that are not following that case, highly suggest checking that out. There's a lot of developments going along with that. Let's see. The mayor, Art. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I will butcher the crap out of that. Released a statement calling the deaths, quote, senseless acts of violence, end quote. Said that only limited information can be shared without jeopardizing the integrity of the investigation, which means, as chances are, when you see this, there's a few different routes this could be going. This is somebody they don't want to alert all the information they have to, which means it's going to be somebody close to one of the victims, or this looks like the work of a serial killer. That's usually what these two things you'll see are. If you guys aren't familiar with the Son of Sam case or Zodiac Killer, this was kind of like that. You got to see some of this activity from the media and from police and all this. They did react to a bit of those cases there, with similar, in a similar fashion. So this could be one of those two things. I mean, there's other things it could be, but this is usually, if you look at these types of cases, then media and government officials and all this are actually talking like in this manner. There's only really a couple reasons as to why they could be using this type of verbiage here for it, and that's usually why. So, is it a serial killer? They're saying there's no ongoing community risk, but they basically, by saying this, is if it's a serial killer, then the ongoing community risk is there. But then you have to look at other cases. Were these the first, or are these the last? Or did the killer dip out of town? There's all sorts of things you can go with this if it comes to a serial killer. However, if they're trying to keep this very, very hush-hush and saying this is the truth here, no ongoing community risk, and they don't want to jeopardize the integrity of the investigation, means they could be just they don't want to go and tip off the person they're onto. And you got to look at statistically, you're more likely to be killed by somebody you know. And then also the fact that he knew where this killer, whoever they were, male or female, whatever, they clearly knew where these 4 victims were. The question is, why these 4? Was the assailant in the home already? We don't know. But they said the Mascot police do not believe there is an ongoing community risk based on information gathered during the preliminary investigation. However, we ask our employees to be empathetic, flexible, and work with our students who desire to return home to spend time with their families. They basically said that the edged weapon, such as a knife, was used. Based on information from the preliminary investigation, investigators believe this was an isolated targeted attack and there is no imminent threat to the community at large. Now they're basically saying this. Now you get the police saying this is isolated, but it was targeted. Therefore, it's somebody they know. So if she's being stalked, that opens it up to this person, the stalker, right? But does it really? That's the real question here. And if it is a stalker, why would they get so violent? Stalkers, I mean, you got some like the Night Stalker case. They would get very, very, very violent real quick. But there was also like Satanism and all this other kind of stuff going on with that. So there's a difference here. Now, we haven't heard about any kind of like satanic activity with this, so. Well, that's definitely a possibility as well. Like I said, there's those 2 victims there, or the two other people that were in the house.